In today's video, we will start with Chapter 3, Statistical Data Analysis. What will we learn in this chapter? What cumulative frequency tables, cumulative frequency curves, and scatter diagrams are, how to estimate the median quartiles and percentiles from cumulative frequency curves, how to calculate quartiles of a set of discrete data, how to estimate the spread of a set of data using range and interquartile range, how to compare two sets of data using the median and the interquartile range, or the mean and the range, and why statistical data analysis is useful in real life. In today's lesson, we will understand how to construct a cumulative frequency table with the help of this example. Here we have two tables. The number of hours 40 students spent using the computer. The table on the left hand side is a regular frequency table, and on the right hand side we have to construct the cumulative frequency table from the given regular frequency table. So let's have a look on the regular frequency table. This one is about the time 40 students spent the computer on particular day. For cumulative frequency table, the first entry will always be the same as the regular frequency table. So here we can see that the first entry of the regular frequency table is 3. So we will take this first entry as it is as a first entry of the cumulative frequency table. And now if we have a look on the first entry in the regular frequency table, we can see it's from 0 to 2 hours with a frequency of 3. So we can just copy it as it is into the cumulative frequency table as well, from 0 to 2 hours with a frequency of 3. But where it changes. So now we are going to look at the next entry from 2 to 4 with a frequency of 5. But because this frequency is cumulative, we are going to include all of the previous frequencies as well. This means we want to include all of the students from the first interval and all of the students from the second interval. If we are going to get all of those students, then we need the hours that are from 0 to 4. So now for one next entry, the hours spent goes from 0 to 4, and we need to add together both of these frequencies, or we could just add on 5 to the last one, which was 3. So 3 plus 5 will be equals to 8. So 3 plus 5 gives us a cumulative frequency of 8. Now if we move on to the third entry, we want to include this interval from 4 to 6, but also both of the previous two intervals. So if we are going to get all of those students, the hours must now go from 0 to 6. And then we need to add together all of the previous frequencies as well. So we need the 3 plus 5 plus 16. So for t less than equals to 6, we have to add all the previous frequencies for the interval 0 to 6. So here we have 3 plus 5 plus 16, and it will be equals to 24. To do this quickly, we could just add the new frequency 16 onto our previous total, or so 8 plus 16 gives us cumulative frequency of 24. We then just repeat this process all the way to the end of the table. So for the next interval from 6 to 8, with the frequency of 12 hours spent, now need to go from 0 all the way up to 8. We can just add on this new frequency of 12 to 24. So for t less than equals to 8, we just have to add up 12 to the previous frequency 24, and it will gives us 36. And for the last interval from 8 to 10, the hours spent now needs to go from 0 all the way up to 10. So now we are going to get all of the students. We can add on this new frequency of 4. So for t less than equals to 10, we have to add up 4 into the previous total, that was 36, and we will get 40. So this is the complete cumulative frequency table. We can use this table to draw cumulative frequency curve. Let's take some axes, and we are going to put the hours spent on the x-axis. So they needs to be go from 0 to 10. So on the x-axis, we will put hours time. Now we have to set the axis for the hours. Now we are scaling the hours on the x-axis. So here we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So now we have scaled the x-axis from 0 to 10, and now we can label that as hours spent. Then we need to put the cumulative frequencies on the y-axis. So here we will put the cumulative frequencies. And this is always we can see that the cumulative frequency goes up to 40, so we need to make sure we goes up to at least 40, and we will label this cumulative frequency. Now we need to mark on some points for each of the entries in the cumulative frequency table. So looking at the first entry from 0 to 2, it has the cumulative frequency of 3. We need to plot this in a very particular place though. Since this entry is saying that up to the point of 2 hours spent, we have 3 students. We are going to plot this at the end point of that interval. So at 2, we are going to plot a cumulative frequency of 3. So here we are scaling the cumulative frequency on along the y-axis. Here we have 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40. And we always do this for cumulative frequency. we always plot at the endpoints of each of intervals. So we go along the x-axis to spend hours of 2 and plot a cumulative frequency of 3. So here we will plot a cumulative frequency of 3, which would be somewhere like this. Somewhere like this. We will put the crosshair. Then we move on the next interval from 0 to 4 with a cumulative frequency of 8. This 8 tells us that there are 8 students who spend up to the 4 hours. So the end of that interval 4, we are going to plot a cumulative frequency of 8. So we go to 4 and 8 and put a cross there. So we go to 4 and 8 and put a cross there. We can continue this with next interval. Point of 6 with a cumulative frequency of 24. So an end point of 6 with a cumulative frequency of 24. That goes here. And the next one, end point of 8 with a cumulative frequency of 36. An interval hours spent, 10 hours spent. And for the last interval, 10 hours is spent with the cumulative frequency of 40, and that is here like this. We can see the cumulative frequency goes up to 40. So here, that's why we have scaled the y-axis labeled by cumulative frequency up to 40. Just be wary that first interval always start at 0, but whatever the value is, there is where you can plot a cumulative frequency of 0. We then join these crosses together. There is one extra cross we ought to put as well. If look at the regular frequency table, if we look at the regular frequency table, the point of the first interval is 0. Since no bodies are spending below 0 on a particular day, so we can be sure the cumulative frequency up to the point 0 is 0. So put a cross at the place 0, 0 as well. So here we have another cross. Just worry that first interval always start at 0, but whatever the value is, there is where you can plot a cumulative frequency of 0. We then just join these crosses together with a smooth curve. So we just take a small review how we have constructed a cumulative frequency table from a cumulative frequency curve from the cumulative frequency table. First of all, we worked out the cumulative frequency table by adding on previous frequencies each time. Then we scaled the axis, making sure the cumulative frequencies was on the y-axis. Then we plotted points, all of the endpoints, making sure to plot each cumulative frequency at the end of the each interval. And finally, we put the hours spending by the students using the computer on the x-axis, and finally we connected them up by using a smooth curve. So this is the final cumulative frequency table. So here we will write down the points to draw a cumulative frequency curve. First, we worked out cumulative frequency table by adding up the previous frequencies each time. Then scale the x-axis and y-axis. We put the hours spent on x-axis, and we put the cumulative frequencies along y-axis. Along x-axis, we have taken the endpoints of the intervals as scaling points. Now after scaling and labeling the both axes, we put the crosses along the respective order pair of the hours spent and the cumulative frequencies. And finally, we connected the crosses with smooth curve. Now we will start with the Exercise 3A in today's lesson. The question 1 says that 120 students took a mathematics examination and their results are shown in the table below. So, on the left hand side, the marks are given in the forms of class intervals, and the number of students showing the frequencies are given on the right hand side. Now, in the part 1, copy and complete the following cumulative frequency table. So, let's have a look on the frequency table. The regular frequency table is about the mathematics examination results of 120 students. For a cumulative frequency table, first entry will always be the same as the frequency table. So if we have a look on the first entry in the regular frequency table, we can see that it's from 0 to 10, marks with a frequency of 3. So we can just copy it as it is into the cumulative frequency table as well, from 0 to 10 with a cumulative frequency of 3. But here, where it changes, so we are going to look at the next entry from 10 to 20 with a frequency of 12. But because this frequency is cumulative, we are going to include all of the previous frequencies as well. This means we want to include all of the students from the first class interval and all of the students from the second class interval. If we are going to get all of those students, then we need the marks that are from 0 to 20. And we could just add on 12 to the last one, which was 3. So 3 plus 12 gives us the cumulative frequency of 15. Now if we move on to the third entry, we want to include this class interval from 20 to 30, but also both of the previous two class intervals. So if we are going to get all of those students, the marks must goes now from 0 to 30. And then we could just add the new frequency of 9 onto the previous total. So 9 plus 15 gives us the cumulative frequency of 24. We then just repeat this process all the way to the end of the table. So for the next class interval from 30 to 40 with a frequency of 11, marks now needs to go from 0 to 40. We can just add on this new frequency of 11 into the previous totals of frequencies. So 24 plus 11 gives us the cumulative frequency of 35. Similarly, for the fifth entry, the class interval 40 to 50, the marks need to go from 0 to 50. So now we are going to get all of the students. We can add on this new frequency of 17 to the previous total 35. So 17 plus 35 and gives us the cumulative frequency of 52. Now for the sixth entry, the class interval 50 to 60 with the frequency of 19. The marks need to go from 0 to 60. Now we are going to add on this new frequency of 19 to the previous total. So 19 plus 52 gives us the cumulative frequency of 70. Seventh entry. So the class interval of 60 to 70 with the frequency of 20. The marks need to go from now 0 to 70. Now we are going to add on this new frequency of 20 into the previous total, and that was 71. So 20 plus 71 gives us the cumulative frequency of 91. Now we are moving to the eighth entry, the class interval of 70 to 80 with a frequency of 14 to the previous. The marks need to go from 0 to 80. Now we are going to add on this new frequency of 14 to the previous total. So 14 plus 91 gives us 105. Now we are taking the ninth entry, the class interval of 80 to 90 with a frequency of 10. The marks need to go from 0 to 90. Now we are going to add on this new frequency of 10 to the previous total 105. So 10 plus 105 gives us the cumulative frequency of 115. For the last interval from 90 to 100 with a frequency of 5, the marks now need to go from 0 to all the way up to 100. Now we are going to get all of the students. We can add on this new frequency of 5 into the previous total, and that was 115. So 5 plus 115 gives us the cumulative frequency of 120. And here the cumulative frequency table completed. Since we have constructed a cumulative frequency table in the part 1, so now in the part 2, using the table in the part 1, find the number of students who scored less than or equal to 30 marks. So by using the table in the part 1, we have to find out the number of students who scored less than or equal to 30 marks. Will be equals to. So we have to find out the number of students who scored less than or equal to 30 marks in the cumulative frequency table we have constructed in part 1. So we have to identify the class interval which shows the students who scored less than or equal to 30 marks, and the number of students is 24. The frequency of the students who scored less than or equal to 30 marks is equals to 24 according to the table. So the number of students who scored less than or equal to 30 marks is equals to 24. And the part 2b, find the number of students who scored more than 80 marks. So to find out the number of students, who scored more than 80 marks, so we will use the cumulative frequency table in the part 1 to find out the number of students who scored more than 80 marks. So for this, what will we do? We will subtract the number of students who scored less than or equal to 80 marks from total number of students. So here we have total number of students minus number of students who scored less than equal to 80 marks. Since the total number of students given is 120, so here we have 120 minus the number of students who scored less than or equal to 80 marks. So we have to identify the class interval in the cumulative frequency table, and the 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 eighth entry, eighth class interval having shows that the number of students who scored less than or equal to 80 marks with the frequency of 105, the cumulative frequency of 105. So now we subtract 120. So now we will subtract 105 from 120 and we will get 15. So the number of students who scored more than 80 marks is equals to 15. Now in the part 2c, find the number of students who scored more than 40 marks but not more than 90 marks. So we have to find out the number of students who scored more than 40 marks. But not more than 90 marks. So it will be equals to now we can find out the number of students who scored more than 40 marks but not more than 90 marks. We have to identify the entries that shows the number of students who scored less than or equal to 40 marks, and the number of students who scored less than or equal to 90 marks. So the fourth entry shows the number of students who scored more than less than or equal to 40 marks, and the ninth entry shows the number of students who scored less than equals to 90 marks. Now we have to first write down the number of students who scored less than equals to 90 marks. So those are 115 from the cumulative frequency table. Take away the number of students who score less than equals to 40 marks, and that is having the frequency 35. So we will write down here 35. 35 take 115 minus 35 is equals to 80. So the number of students who scored more than 40 marks but not more than 90 marks is equals to 115 minus 35 is equals to 80. Now on the part 3, explain why it is not possible to state the number of students who scored less than 30 marks. So the cumulative frequency table is based on a less than or equal to frequency. Since it is not possible to find out the number of students who scored exactly 30 marks. It is not possible to state the number of students who scored less than 30 marks. Part 4. If a student is chosen at random from the 20 students, find the relative frequency that she has scored more than 80 marks. Since we have already found out the number of students who scored more than 80 marks in the part 2b, and that was 15. So to find out the relative frequency, we will write down the formula here. It will be equals to number of occurrences divided by total number of trials. Now, since the number of occurrences that the number of students who scored more than 80 marks is 15, and the total number of students, the total number of trials in this case is total number of students, and that is 120. Now, after simplification with the help of table 3, we have 3 5s are 15 and 3 40s are 120. And after further simplification with the help of table 5, 5 1s are 5 and 5 8s are 40, so it will be equals to 1 over 8. So the relative frequency that she has a student that she has scored more than 80 marks is equals to 1 over 8. Now in question 2, the table shows below the daily total rainfall in millimeter recorded in a particular month. So we have a daily total rainfall in terms of millimeter. Now this particular data is a grouped data because it is divided into small groups or class intervals, and every class interval having a class size of 10. How we came to know that the class size is 10? So we will subtract the lower limit from the upper limit of the first class interval. So the upper limit is 10 minus the lower limit is 0. So our answer will be 10. So this is the class size. And this class size is same for all the class intervals. So there is a difference of a 10 millimeter for 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, and 60 to 70. And this particular daily rainfall class interval shows us the number of days in the corresponding class interval. Now, number of days is nothing but the frequency. So, the number of days is nothing but the frequency. But the rate frequency is nothing but the rate at which something occurs. That means for 21 days we have a daily rainfall 0 to 10 millimeter. For 3 days we have a daily rainfall of 10 to 20 millimeter and so on. So let us start by calculating the total of frequency. So the total of frequency is 31, 21 add 3, add 2, add 1, add 2, add 1, add 1 gives us 31. In cumulative frequency, we have to add the frequency at every single stage. Why this is called listen type frequency table? Because in this case, we have to actually take the upper limits. Whenever we say less than something, that means that something has to be of the higher value. So we are going to say lesser than 10, lesser than 20, lesser than 30, lesser than 40, lesser than 50, lesser than 60, lesser than 70. So we will write it down like here: lesser than 10, lesser than 20, lesser than 30, lesser than 40, lesser than 50, lesser than 60,
and lesser than 70. If we want to calculate the cumulative frequency till 20, so we will add the frequency is from 0 to 20. Since in the previous question we have already discussed that the first entry of the frequency table will be copied as it is into the first entry of the cumulative frequency table. So the first entry will be 21. So if we want to calculate the cumulative frequency till 20, so we will add the frequency is from 0 to 20. That means the frequency of the first group and the frequency of the second group. So 21 will be added with 3 and it will give us the cumulative frequency of 24. Similarly, the cumulative frequency till 30 would be everything from 0 to 30. So 21 plus 3 plus 2 will be added. So 24 plus 2 gives us the cumulative frequency of 26. Similarly, we will do for all the groups. So if we want to calculate the cumulative frequency till 40, we will add the frequency from 0 to 40, or we simply add 1 into the previous total and it will gives us 27, cumulative frequency of 27. Now if we want to calculate the cumulative frequency till 50, so it would be everything from 0 to 50. So we will add 2 into the previous total and it will give the cumulative frequency of 29. Similarly, if we want to get the cumulative frequency till 60, then it would be everything from 0 to 60, and for this we will add 1 into the previous total of the frequencies and it will give us 30. For the last group, if we want to calculate the cumulative frequency till 70, then it would be everything from 0 to 70. So we will add the previous total with 1 and it will give us the cumulative frequency of 31. Now if we notice, the last cumulative frequency is actually equals to the total frequency, and that is 31. So this is another trick that we can check that we have constructed the cumulative frequencies is correct or not. If the last entry of the cumulative frequency table or cumulative frequency column is equal to the total frequencies, then the table we have constructed is correct. Now in the part 2, using the cumulative frequency table which we have constructed in the part 1, find the number of days when the total rainfall was. In the part 2a, number of days when the rainfall was less than 30 millimeter. Now the number of days when the rainfall was less than 30 millimeter can be find out from the table above. So the value for the number of days when the rainfall was 30 millimeter is 26. So the number of days when the rainfall was less than 30 millimeter is equals to 26. Now in the part 2b, find the number of days when the rainfall was at least 40 millimeter. So the number of days when rainfall was at least 40 millimeter. So for this, we have to subtract the value when the total daily rainfall is less than 40, and that is 27. We will subtract the number of days for when the daily total rainfall was less than 40 from the total number of days, and that is 31. So 31 take away 27 will be equals to is 4. So the number of days when rainfall was at least 40 millimeter is equals to 4. Now for part 2c, find the number of days when the rainfall was at least 20 millimeter or less than 50 millimeter. So the number of days when rainfall was at least 20 millimeter but less than 50 millimeter. So for this, we have to identify the values from the table for the daily total rainfall when x is less than 20 and when the x is less than 50. So for x is less than 20, we have value 24, and x is less than 50, we have the value 29. Now we have to take away 27 from 29 and we will get we have to take away 24 from 29 and we will get 5. So the number of days when rainfall was at least 20 millimeter but less than 50 millimeter is equals to 5. Now in the question 3, explain why it is not possible to state the number of days when the rainfall was at most 60 millimeter. Since the cumulative frequency table is based on less than frequency, so it is not possible to find out the number of days when rainfall was exactly 60 millimeter. It is not possible to state the number of days when the rainfall was at most 60 millimeter. Now in the part 4, if a day is chosen and random from the month, find the relative frequency that the day has at least a total rainfall of 40 millimeter. So for the relative frequency, we have the formula number of occurrences divided by total number of trials. So here the number of occurrences that the day has at least a total rainfall of 40 millimeter. So we have already find out the number of days when the rainfall was at least 40 millimeter in the part 2b, and it was 4, and the total number of days is 31. So the relative frequency will be equals to 4 over 31.